Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Praying Well. I'm Mike St. Pierre, your host. Today we're going to be talking about how to be a more resilient a more resilient person who prays. But before we do that, just a reminder to either like this video or subscribe, or you know what? Why not do both? I mean, seriously. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be resilient. In academic circles, the hot word for that, the adjective, is to be gritty. And there's a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, which I would recommend. It's excellent. Whether you're in education as a teacher or a student or not, even just as a parent, to be gritty means to have stick-to-itiveness, to have a kind of toughness about you. And when we talk about Christian prayer, toughness is actually kind of important. You know, Jesus talks in at least a couple of places, and we'll make sure we put it on the screen, maybe underneath my face or in the show notes. He talks about that persistent widow, the one who just keeps nagging and nagging and nagging. And Jesus ultimately uses that as an example that our prayer should be persistent. Or think of where Jesus talks about being brief. The idea is that Jesus says, when you're going to pray, get serious about it. This is a conversation with the Almighty. It's not like playing around. You know what I mean? There are plenty of examples throughout Christian history, too, of people who are very persistent. We oftentimes will lift up the example of St. Monica, the mother of St. Augustine, and we credit her really essentially with Augustine's conversion, along with Ambrose. But if you look at history, what a lot of writers will say is that actually Monica was pretty doggone persistent, almost like nagging, right? So whatever the case, the point I'm trying to make is that persistence is very important when we talk about prayer. So I like to think that there are probably three qualities of somebody who is a persistent or resilient or gritty prayer. And one is that they value progress over perfection. They value that idea that I'm getting better, I'm sticking with it, I'm making progress, and I'm not going to beat myself up over not being perfect. Second, I'm looking at my cheat sheets here. They take the long view, and they understand that in a given week, if I'm going to have 7 daily quiet times, it's very likely that all 7 are not going to be amazing. And the last piece, the quality of a resilient, persistent prayer, is that they don't get too hung up when they sin or when they mess up. For a couple reasons. One, they have the wisdom to know that they're going to have a few steps forward and a few more steps backward. But second, they take the mercy of God more seriously than their own sinfulness. They understand that it's actually pride to really wallow in your own sin and to just be, oh my gosh, I'm so sinful. Is repentance valuable and contrition? Absolutely. It should be a part of our daily experience. But we don't get hung up there. We don't stay there because God's mercy, God's love covers a multitude of sins. So can I give you 3 opportunities to be more resilient in your prayer life? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Okay, so here's one example. You miss daily Mass. Of course, you're getting to Sunday Mass, but you want to be getting to daily Mass a couple of times if you can't get every day during the week. But let's say you miss it. Well, one choice is to kind of beat yourself up over it and say, oh man, I missed daily Mass. I'm never going to get to daily Mass again. I stink at this, right? Well, obviously, that's not really a great choice. So my suggestion, a little strategy would be, if you miss daily Mass, take out your smartphone or your daily calendar and schedule in the next time that you can get to daily Mass. It may seem like, okay, well, I didn't make daily Mass, so I'm just scheduling the next time. But actually, that little gap there where you are actively scheduling is an act of faith, and is your faith being put into action so that you'll trust me, you'll be much more likely to get to daily Mass. Let's take another example, another opportunity to be more gritty. You don't have enough time for a full daily quiet time. You wake up late, it's crazy around the house, you're traveling, so you have to get an early flight. Who knows what it might be? So you could just skip your daily quiet time altogether. You could just say, oh, just forget it. I don't have time for prayer today. I'm toast. The day is just not going to be a good one. Yes, you could make that choice, but here's a better choice. A strategy would be, I bet you could find 5 quiet minutes where you could just sit and just kind of calm yourself down and give that time over to the Lord so He can center you on whatever is ahead in your day. So again, you could choose to just say, I stink at this, or you could choose what you do have, and that's probably 5 silent minutes alone with God. Another example of how you could choose to be a more resilient person of prayer. What a lot of us do, we go to confession and then we wait a week, turns into a couple weeks, turns into a month, turns into a couple of months, and then before you know it, you go into confession and you say to the priest, it's been a while since my last confession. It's not a lie. It's been several months since my last confession. Again, that's not a lie. But that's not really awesome, right? Because you're kind of letting stuff build up. It's like tartar or plaque on your teeth. And it's just much better to be a flosser, if you know what I mean. And it's just much better to be a person who's going to confession regularly in your prayer life. So rather than let that much time build up in between you're going to confession, one strategy, one way to be more resilient, take time every day before you go to sleep to practice that examination of conscience. It's not just a good practice for Jesuits, it's a good practice for all of us. God, where did I see you today? What stood out today? What was happy about today? Ooh, what was something that I'd like to redo from today? You just take literally 30 seconds will do wonders. And by doing that, you're building that reflective muscle, you know what I mean, a muscle that has this habit of you're reflecting daily. And it's going to, one, help you to get to confession more often. And two, when you go to confession, you have a pretty accurate sense of where you are and how sinful you are. Okay? So I hope that these tips, these strategies help you to be a more resilient prayer. And I hope that you take the long view. Don't beat yourself up if you have a bad day. Get back on the horse and ask for God's mercy and grace to take you to a deeper level of faith. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.